Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me? If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up. All right. So thank you for joining She Leads. I'm so excited about today. I've been excited for the past year trying to put this thing together. The pandemic came and we've been pivoting. Man, I feel like rolling dice. 7-Eleven Beyonce, because that is what this is. But I'm so glad that we are here. I want you to know that I am recording. Hopefully this is coming out in speaker view, but if not, whatever we pull up, I'm going to edit it, put it on YouTube, and send it out to all of you. So a few logistical points I'd like to make. If you haven't joined our Padlet, please join the Padlet. Because when you have phenomenal women like the panels we have today, it just never seems to be enough time. And, you know, we have a high caliber of women here today too. So I am thankful that you made time to be part of She Leads. So as we go through the first panel, I'm going to ask people to mute your mics. And one of the trivial things I've noticed as we've pivoted to Zoom, Google Meets, Microsoft, all other kind of things you have to meet virtually is to determine who is speaking. So when I ask questions, I'll call names so we won't talk over one another. But I just want to shout out those joining us today. So we have Mayor, the first Black woman, first woman, period, female, okay, mayor of the city of Manassas, and that is Mayor Michelle Davis Younger. Give her a round of applause, however you need to do it. We have Vice Mayor Jennifer Bowles of Martinsville City Council. Give her a round of applause. We also have Miss Tiffany Boyle. She is the Commissioner of Revenue from Newport News, Virginia. Give her a round of applause. And we have Miss Laurie Williams. Miss Laurie Williams serves on the Prince William County, Virginia School Board representing the Woodbridge District. Give her a round of applause. And we have my friend on the Northern Virginia Regional Commission. She is a supervisor, a district supervisor in Fairfax County, Miss Dahlia Pouchik. Give her a round of applause. So with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. We're also going to pray on recording this from a speaker view, but we're going to find out in a minute, okay? So I'm just excited we get to celebrate women. Look, everybody got a round of applause. It was no, whatever. Everybody just authentically did their little hand clap, did their little shake, give that round of applause. That's what we need to do to genuinely lift one another up. And we're doing it statewide today, so I'm thrilled. So we're going to go ahead and start. And Mayor, we're going to start with you. Everyone on this first panel, you will answer this question. What led you to get involved in politics?
Well, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So glad to be here. That's always a stumper of a question because I wasn't really led to it. It found me. I think that from being from the city that I'm now the mayor of was a big catapult into it. People saw it and said, you're a leader. We see your characteristics. We see how you carry yourself. You would be really good and we need you. So it really found me. And that's why I always try to encourage young ladies, people are watching you. They are watching the company you keep. They're watching you on Facebook and all this posting and all that. Be extremely careful because people will see leadership in you or they won't. And it came to me, it found me. And so, like I always say, God will make room for your gift when you don't even know you have that gift. Room is already being made for it. So other sisters had come before me and run and were not successful. It just wasn't their time. And so it found me. I jumped in head first, learning, burning, churning, doing it all at the same time, had to catch on and go. So, but I'm glad I'm here, and it's so much to learn. But, you know, and once I get in something, as you see, 2 years later, I ran for mayor when it was, she hadn't been on council that long. It doesn't take long to see that you can keep making change and make change better at a higher level. So hope that answers the question. I'm trying not to talk too long. I know we have a lot of people, so, but thank you again.
No problem. Thank you. Vice Mayor Bowles, same question.
Hi, everyone. So what led me is I took a class at the University of Virginia called Black Fire, and it described the political activism that occurred at UVA. And I learned about Muhammad Ali and just things that I had not learned about political activism when growing up. So when I came home, I was full of energy, ready to go, not sure how I wanted to make an impact, but I knew that was a way to really change my community. I received a newsletter in the mail about the consolidation of 2 precincts, which happened to be the historical Black precincts. And the reason why they were divided instead of one huge precinct was there were deaths because you had to cross a highway, and not to mention all the laws that, you know, the polling tests and things of that nature. So I read it and I said, wow, why not consolidate the other precincts that are closer in proximity? So I went to that meeting, spoke out against it. I mean, I was very adamant about it, you know, with that young fire you have when you're first coming out of college. And a lot of individuals told me I should run for city council. I laughed it off, right? Who do you typically see on city council? I'm 24 years old. And, you know, I ran very successfully, won 4 out of the 6 precincts, and came within 100 votes of the incumbent that had been there in 20 years. So that really, you know, made me feel that I was a voice that was needed.
Amen. Thank you. So, Ms. Boyle, how about you?
Good morning, everybody. Thank you, Cydny, for having me be part of this panel. Similar story, someone asked me to run to be Commissioner of Revenue for the City of Newport News. Behind that initial ask, I used to work in the office back like 2008 to 2011. I guess when I was there, I probably had a lot of ideas on how we could reach the community, how we can improve processes. That's just like my personality. So the person who asked me, who is actually now my chief deputy, I said before I left, like, I'm gonna be Commissioner of Revenue one day. I don't remember this at all. And I'm sure I was just speaking out of frustration but God is funny, right? He has his own plan. 5 years later, I was driving from Alexandria, Virginia back to Newport News, and I got the text message like, well, you know, the commissioner is retiring. Would you be interested in running? And I prayed. I had a good peace about it. And I said, yeah, that's something I could do. And, you know, everything else is history.
When he moves, you move, right? Ready or not, he ready. Ms. Williams.
Well, good afternoon now, everyone, and thank you, Cydny, for hosting this. Well, for me, I come from sort of an activist family, but also being somewhat homegrown to Prince William County when my child was enrolled in school. I was silly in the sense that probably one of the few that watched school board meetings for fun. Heard that there was going to be an opening in my district and decided to go for the appointment. I wasn't thinking about actually running for office at that time. And I figured, well, I'll go give a speech. If they pick me, then they pick me, yay. They did pick me. And then I got a call and they said, from a local Democratic Party, and they said, hey, we'd like to support you in running for office. I said, I have never run for anything. I don't even run the mile. And they said, if you would like to help me figure out how to run a campaign, I will do it. And that is what happened now in the 3rd term. And yes, God will make a way. If you're supposed to be there, that is where you will be. So that's it.
Amen. Glad you are where you are. Okay. Ms. Palchik.
Yes, thank you, Cydny. So good to see you, and everyone here, and hear your stories, because we are all so linked. I too grew up here, so I was, I was one of those kids, ESL at the time, English language learner, free meals, growing up here in Fairfax County. My parents trying to figure out how to make ends meet and assimilate in this county, and never imagined doing this. I was inspired to teach because I love my teachers. I worked international poverty and came back and realized that here we are, Fairfax County, one of the most diverse places in the world, socially, culturally, and economically. And I wasn't seeing that on the boards, but it took more than that. I had someone who I reached out to because I said, one of my teacher colleagues is doing an internship for her senator this summer. That seems interesting. And he said, yeah, you could do that, but you've got and I know this isn't partisan, but you've got a Republican in your seat. And no one's challenging. This was back in 2015 for school board. We did not have the blue wave yet. And you should consider it. So it took a long time. I wasn't sure, am I the right one? Is she not doing a better job than I could do? But I used to take the bus to go to the metro, to go to work. And there were these two women, these two Latina moms sitting in front of me. It was December, and talking about their kids getting their 50-cent raise. They were both working at hotels in Tyson's. And one of them said, I can't take my vacation because I had my other part-time job and I would move, but my son loves his school and I don't want to move him. And my heart just sank to my stomach. I said, it's not for me, it's for them. They need this voice. So here I am, and loving it every day.
That is an excellent story and a very great point. And I tip my hat to you. I'm so thankful that Fairfax has an elected educator. So we're going to move on to the next question. And that is to tell us about a phenomenal woman who has impacted your life. Mayor, I'm about to call on you.
Thank you. There are many. I bring it more closely home in that for me and those of you who may have followed and followed my story, being from Manassas, and that's the place where the first land battles of the Civil War took place. So setting that, never having a woman in this seat, never having a person of color nor a Democrat in this seat ever. So that alone is just amazing. But I go back to my mother being my phenomenal woman. And the reason for that is everything that I just stated before. My parents are from Manassas. They were born here and never left. Places where they could not walk in the front door. They couldn't sit down and eat. They couldn't buy clothes. They had to go, inside doors, and they couldn't do like the other folks. To stay here and live through that, couldn't go on this side of the tracks after dark because bad things would happen. And so the fact that they, and especially my mother, can see me now in this role, I'm the mayor, their daughter, where the place is 100 yards, well, I guess a half a mile away from City Hall, Grant Avenue, if you know Manassas, all the big, beautiful homes. My mother scrubbed the floors of the kitchens in those houses a mile away from City Hall, where her daughter now sits as the mayor. It gives you goosebumps. And when I think about, I would hear her tell stories about, how they would speak to them, how they would talk to them, and you just persevere. And she just hung in there and didn't let it stop them. All of their siblings, my dad's siblings, all left and went to DC. We are done with Manassas. They will never change. It will never be, it'll always be this awful place, and Black folks will never have nothing. And they left, and my mom and dad stayed to see my mother, and she really just broke down at my swearing in. My dad broke down when I won council, because I was the first woman of color to get on council. But my mother, and I kept saying, Mom, you didn't really cry at the last one. I thought you would have been one. And she said, this one, all she kept saying was, I scrubbed the floors of those people on Grant Avenue, and you are right here. You are our mayor. And so it's my mom. I mean, there's so many. I mean, Michelle Obama and, Kamala. I mean, gosh, you can't even. But when I think about what they had to endure and the hope, they never thought their child would even be on council, much less the mayor. But to live through that, 82 years old, she'll be 83 in August, to live through that, having now arthritic hands, can barely, hold stuff, and her daughter's the mayor. That's my phenomenal woman, really. They live with me. I'm privileged. People say, oh my God, how do you do it? It's what you do. Looking at what they gave up and what she went through, it's the least. And I think having them with me adds years to them as well. 82 and 87 years old. And that alone, and the pride, and they walk around and they try not to be puffed up, and we don't act like that. We're just not like that. But every now and then I'll hear them talking, well, my daughter's the mayor, and it's this little calm, and they're just so proud of the very place where, buildings where they couldn't walk in and eat, or even just buy clothes. Or, my dad tells a story about how in Old Town, I rode him around one day. He doesn't walk, so I got somebody to get a gator, and we rode around. He pull over right here, and we rode up in front of the Hibbs and Giddings building. And this is where everybody purchased their dress clothes for Sunday and all like that. Of course, the Black folks had to go in the side door. And he said, and I heard this story for the first time, and this was just shortly after I got elected. And I said, what's so special about this? And he said, I never told you this. He said, this is the first place where I bought my very first suit, $12 on credit. The man said, take the suit, you can take the suit, but bring me $1 a week until it's paid off. Where you gonna find that now, right? Somebody to do that. But people seeing good in you again, and willing to, take that chance. I know where you live. I'm gonna come get you if you don't pay me. But $1 a week for a $12 suit, that was big time, but right here. And that building is like 500 yards from where I'm in City Hall right now, right there. And people just can't believe it when I tell them, like, they're like, right here? I'm like, yep, right here. And so again, my mother, I answered it, my mother. There are others, but she's number one in my book. Just the sacrifice and the hanging in there and not giving up. I mean, that took that's some stuff that not too many people are made up these days. I don't know many of us that would have put up with it, but she did, and she's here. And I'm so glad she's able to see it come, because it's just like my wonderful eternal gift to them. Like, okay, now am I the best daughter or what now, right? What else can I do? But she is definitely my inspiration, my phenomenal woman for sure.
Thank you so much, Mayor. Vice Mayor.
Wow, your story is certainly inspirational. And I will say, I too have those feelings about my mother and my grandmother. I'm sorry I couldn't just pick one, but they were so impactful to me. My mother was a special ed teacher at Martinsville City Public Schools. She went on to be a second grade pre-algebra math teacher, and then went on to be an educational diagnostician. I know that's a mouthful, but she just helped with the special ed testing at the central office and the administrative level. And I just love her progression and how she grew. One thing that is so memorable about my mother, she passed away when I was 16, but the life lessons that she taught me, I'll never forget. My mother always spoke up for people. She always said, Jennifer, you can do anything that you want. I mean, there were so many times in which my mother could have remained silent, and she didn't. For example, I went to Druid Hills Elementary, which was a predominantly white school in our African-American, predominantly half white, half black town. And I remember going to the playground, and a little girl told me, Black people don't get to swing on the swing first. And this is impactful, right? I'm 5 years old. And I went and told my mom, and mind you, she's mild-mannered. Michelle Obama is how I would describe her, always going high. And I've never seen her so angry. And not in a sense of being disrespectful, but morally about what's right and not doing what's wrong. And then my grandmother, she always worked the polls. So that's how I truly first began learning about the process. She was like, it's no reason for you not to vote. It's a right. We worked for it. And my grandmother always was big on proper English. Whenever we said, where is Papa at? behind that preposition. So I strongly just remember, you know, how she just impacted me. And my grandmother was going through dementia when I was first elected on city council. And she came to the swearing in ceremony where I had become the youngest person ever to be ever elected to the council, and the first African-American woman to be in the leadership role of vice mayor. We have yet to get a woman mayor, but, you know, we're still working on it. But I remember her actually recalling, mind you, she's going through dementia. And she said, "Wow, Jennifer, I'm so proud of you." And, you know, my grandmother was valedictorian of her class. She was unable to even go to college because, you know, at that time, Black women were not able to go. So just their belief in me to always speak up, be an advocate, say what's right, don't hold back. And always they taught me, no matter how frustrated you are, still maintain that level of respect, and you can say it calmly and still get your point across.
Excellent. Excellent. All right, Commissioner Boyle.
I have to agree with the two ladies before me. Of course, it's a collaborative effort. It takes a village to help us grow who we are. But my mother is my main source of inspiration. I just remember being little, and she's a court reporter by profession. And when I was little in Miami, I remember us I would go to the firm with her. And this lady kept calling her Lois, but her name is Lois. And she kept saying, "No, my name is Lois. You will pronounce it correctly." And here I am, maybe 6, 7 years old, and I'm just sitting there. And I think that was my first introduction of standing up for yourself, no matter who is the other person, no matter where you are, because you should be respected. And then, of course, I have ladies in Newport News that are just amazing. I had one lady when I was looking at starting a magazine for the government. She was like, "Well, come to some events and come help out with registration, get to know who your legislators are, things like that." And this was 2 years before I even thought about getting into politics. So I was like, just her being welcoming and mentoring me and answering questions was my first little invitation into the world of politics. And then I have a local councilwoman who, when I was running, was like, "Don't be a mouse, you know, don't be a fly on the wall when you enter a room. You enter a room, you say, 'Hi, my name is Tiffany. I'm running for such and such. I'm this person.'" And then she gave me little tips like, have nuts in the car so you don't get, you don't have to stop at fast food places, or you're trying to stay healthy, and then she saw me losing weight as I was campaigning, so she was like, "We got to keep your weight up. This is how you stay healthy and do these things." So just a lot of women. I take stuff from a lot of them, and especially my mother and my aunts and both of my grandmothers, just feeding into me, and I really appreciate that. So I think everybody should I'm sure we all notice, what other women do to help us, and we take that and we grow from it.
Thank you. School Board Member Williams.
Thank you. Well, let's just keep the momentum going here. It would be the same for me as well. For me and my mother, I am mixed race heritage. So my mother is Sicilian and my father is African American. So it was watching my mother endure things like being disowned from her family and just never skipping a beat. She did not go to college because Italian girls didn't go, boys went. All the money was saved for them. And she always wanted to do those things. And I would always get nervous. I appear as an extrovert, but I'm really not. I'd rather be in my house, in my room with a book. And I would say, "Oh, I don't know about this." And she'd look at me and she'd go, "Well, why not?" And I would, what do you mean, why not? You didn't do it. Well, I didn't have a chance to do it. So why not? Who said you couldn't? And I get, okay, yeah, okay. And, she that was just how she lived her life and still lives her life now. She's retired now, but even to this day, I said, "Well, Mom, what should I do next?" "Well, what shouldn't you do?" That's always the question. And I'm like, what about the other people? Who cares about the other people? And okay, all right, let's go. And just watching her attitude fight for her basic ability to survive, you know, living in a time where being married to my dad meant she could not get jobs. They could not go places. She didn't have friends. There was no one that she could call and say, well, how do I do this? Or how can you help me with my child or make the balance work? Because there weren't any other couples. You know, there weren't people who wanted to talk to her being stuck in the middle. And then watching my grandmother, who was a community activist, my father's mother, she was a very, very kind woman, but very, very forceful in herself. First woman to start NAACP chapter in her hometown. Married, her husband was the first African-American cop in her hometown. And she was the neighborhood ombudsman and the one who could read when other people could not read. And so between the two of those ladies, it was never an excuse not to. Every time I thought I could come up with something, they would just give me a look like, I don't know about that. Like, well, you know, what is your reason? What is the purpose here? So they were my backbone and encouragement, but also an example that if they could do it, that I could do it too. So, and unfortunately, my grandmother's still not here with me anymore, but my mother is. And every day I get the call, okay, what have you done today? Nothing. Would get up and do something. So yes, I'm very honored and blessed to have them in my life.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Williams. Supervisor Palchik.
Thank you. Well, I'll be brief because I'm right on board with every lady here. I'm not in my office today, but if I were, I have a painting behind me on all of my calls that my grandmother painted and gave to me. She passed away when I was only 3.5, but I remember her very fondly. She was orphaned in Lithuania, left before the Holocaust, followed her brother to Argentina, had finished a teacher seminary, was not able to teach when she moved and had a family. And later in her life, my uncle gave her paint and she started painting my books, stories of her childhood, and really inspiring me and, you know, sometimes protecting me when my mom got mad. But I was definitely the favorite little granddaughter, the only at the time. And she was incredible, and I missed her fondly, even though I was so young, and her stories. But, you know, we moved here, and my mom didn't speak a word of English, couldn't drive a car, hadn't finished college. It was very difficult in Argentina if you didn't like where you started to switch to another track. So instead, you know, she raised 4 kids, and we moved here. She learned English, then took catering classes, started her own small catering company, learned to drive, and that was really, really hard for her. And then during the pandemic, when she was making lunches at a preschool that closed down, so she quickly shifted and started her own home preserves business to sell at a local farmer's market. So I know I inspire her, but she inspires me every day, and just so thrilled to see all of you here. I know many of us are the first, the only on our boards, and I have to tell you, just being here today, Cydny, just it feels so good. It feels so connected and united, so thank you.
Thank you so much. We all come from strong female influences in our lives, and I'm just happy you all are here. And I'm just going through my notes, and statewide, we have a really good representation on our panel. You know, we have a mayor, we have a vice mayor, we have a commissioner of revenue, we have a school board representative, we have a supervisor, and I myself serve on a town council. So, you know, for anyone tuning in, there's absolutely nothing you can't do. And I'm not going to get preachy because you all know, those of you who've had conversations with me, you know, I'll go down all kinds of rabbit holes and give a full TED talk. So I'm not going to do that right now, but I might do one later. But I will use my hashtag is you can do anything too. Like, you truly can. And what an amazing group of women we have representing different roles that you can play in your community. And one of the things I enjoy most as an elected official with that hat is being able to bring forth policy that changes the community around me. You know, I always say my mother taught me how to fight with a pen, like to strategize, you know, to fight differently. So if you could share, you know, what policy are you most proud of? And I know for some of us that might have a laundry list, but try to get it to one or two for the sake of time. Some policy that you have supported, brought forth, that has made a significant change in your community. And for the sake of those watching, if you could also just take a moment and explain what your role is, like what do you do? Because people tuned in may not know what you do. So if you can say that and talk about some influential policy that you brought forth or you championed, please do that. Mayor, we're starting with you.
I get to be first all the time. This is great. Okay, so sake of time, coming onto council, was able to immediately identify the need to have term limits installed here in the city. We, on our boards, committees, and commissions, we have people who have been sitting on our airport commission and all these other types of boards, 30 and 40, it's ridiculous. And so that went over like a lead balloon, but I got it done, along with another councilwoman. And that was huge. So now, and we just said, you can serve 2 terms and then come off for a year and you can come back. That allows other people to participate. You want that in your community. Well, that hasn't been the way all the time. So it hasn't been very welcoming and inviting for others, especially those that look like me. So that was one thing. We have recently stood up the Equity and Inclusion Task Force. Oh my gosh, that is going to be, it's in the process now. They're actually starting to do their listening sessions, where they're going to look at the policies that we've had in place. The city will be 150 years old in a couple of years, and still same policies, still things that don't fit the entire community. So what they're going to do is go out, pockets of the community, talk to different segments. What affects me over where I live doesn't affect somebody else, in another area of the city. But the government is unaware of everything that needs to be worked on and fixed. So standing that up, and it's a beautiful rainbow of people. I was very intentional about holding the applications open, because I didn't want to still continue to see the same people signing up, if you get what I'm saying. If you look like me, talk like me, act like me, walk like me, where's the diversity? Where are the other ideas? We're going to just keep doing the same thing. So I held it open. And we have every walk of life on this committee. And they thought I was crazy when I said, we're going to put them all on. I didn't want to tell anybody no. And I figured a few will drop off. A few did, but it's still like 30 people. They don't want to go. They were looking. It came out of what happened with Mr. Floyd. It was born out of that. And people were like, what can I do? And so we came up with that, and it is going to be so successful. They're starting their listening sessions, and I'm just so proud of those 2 things. The term limits was huge. Ooh, you don't know what I went through. And being able to get this Equity and Inclusion Task Force set up to look at our policies, because we have so much work to do. And we're just starting that change in Manassas. We're well behind where we should be, but it's got to start. It's starting with me being at the top. So that's 2 things that I'm working on, and there's other stuff, but and for time, I know I need to move on. So
thank you, Mayor. And you always first, that, right?
Okay, all right.
And that's a shameless plug for our Padlet. Those of you who are here, you've already opened up the guide that was put together, so you have access to the Padlet for continued conversations. So please feel free, ladies on the panel, if you need to add something extra, do it in the Padlet. We also have our chat, but I do want to point out, if someone joins after you leave a comment in the chat, they cannot see it. So the Padlet is our go-to for today. But Vice Mayor, you're next.
Hi, so for those just joining in, I'm Vice Mayor Jennifer Bowles in the city of Martinsville. So although these gestures that occurred for me were a little bit symbolic for our community, it always matters. So for example, we never recognized Black History Month as a council. We never recognized Women's International Day or Women's History Month. So although they may be symbolic, it just shows where we were, right? So those were some things that I added to our council agenda when I first came on. I was kind of taken aback, but those are just two symbolic gestures that I made. When I first came on council, I was always the deciding vote. And not to bash anyone, but we had a superintendent who we felt wasn't really reaching the expectations. Our schools were unaccredited, every single school, and our school board members are appointed by council. So I was always the deciding vote to appoint these new individuals on the school board who finally made the ultimate decision of getting a Black superintendent who had been in the schools for years. And within his first year, despite so many negative comments and publicity, all of our schools are accredited. He's the most successful superintendent that we've had that I've ever seen during my tenure. So I'm just very proud of him. But one policy change that I made that I'm extremely proud of is I serve on the West Piedmont Planning District Commission as the regional Martinsville member. And we had a discrimination policy, and I essentially copied and pasted what the Crown Act that was passed in California embodied. So, right, I am a speck of blue and a sea of red where I'm from. So, of course, unfortunately, what works best for me is respectability politics, although I know that can be problematic in some settings. But what works best for me during that session is to influence them in that way, you know, saying things like, is that how you would treat me because I'm wearing braids? Is that what we want to represent? So that's something that I'm extremely proud of, because I'm pretty sure these individuals are avid Trump supporters. So to get them to essentially pass the Crown Act in their discrimination policy was a huge gesture for me. And, you know, representation matters. And that's something that I'm really proud of.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyle?
So Commissioner of the Revenue is a constitutional office, right? So we do not make any laws, but we administer all of the laws. And I always tell people we're like the connection between the people and our city council or our state delegation, because I know how the laws that they put in place affect our citizens when it comes to taxes and businesses, things like that. So what we did was I usually do tours of different businesses around the city. And after talking with a lot of women and talking with a lot of minorities, I realized that they're just having a hard time, even with SWAM certifications or getting resources, things of that matter. So our office decided to take it upon ourselves to spearhead the creation of the Minority Business Commission, which is our first statewide Minority Business Commission. So what that commission does is it provide, well, what it will be doing, because we just started meeting and they just appointed people and things of that matter. What we will be doing is providing accountability for government contracts on a state level and a local level. Also encouraging localities to start their own minority business commission. It doesn't have to be called that. It could be a task force. Virginia Beach is actually the first one to have it. They call it the Minority Business Council. So we really mimicked what they already do and just made it a statewide umbrella. And with that already being in existence now in Newport News, we're going to start a task force as well. So we're just getting that started. We're going to encourage like a city council, probably have a city council person on there, our Chamber of Commerce, other business owners around the city in different industries, someone from our purchasing department, because they're the ones that handle the contracts and the vendor relationships, and also someone from our development office, so we can look at statistics, we can look at the disparity, and we can look to see, you know, how we can change, if bond ratings need to be changed, if you know, contracts need to be debundled, things like that, that hold minority businesses or women-owned businesses back because they might not have the employees, they might not have the funds, they might not have the experience yet to give them a chance to get those government contracts to bring us to an equitable rate. So that's what I'm most proud of, and most recent.
Thank you. School Board Member Williams.
Thank you, Councilwoman Neville. I'm really impressed by that. I'm sorry, Ms. Boyle, that's just amazing. Having a dad who had a small business and learning about being a minority business contractor, that is so complex. So that is so impactful. Sorry, I was like, yeah, I don't hear that too much. And especially from women, sorry, it touched me a little bit. For me, there's two things, but the most important is, or the one I'm most proud of, always gets me emotional, is putting student representatives on our school board. I did it at a time, even though we are a nonpartisan board, it was mostly Republican seat holders. You know, you can't escape politics in Northern Virginia. It just, we live it, breathe it, eat it, everything. It just, you could be nonpartisan, but it is what it is. It was, believe it or not, a 2-year battle. I faced adults who clearly and vehemently believed that students did not deserve to sit on the board, could not handle a school board, could not handle the responsibility of sitting on a board, participating in politics. I just could not understand how we could make policy and rules for 89,000 people and not give them a single voice in the matter. And yes, it was a fight. When I say a fight, in public and behind closed doors. I was very grateful to have my other school board member, Miss Lily Jesse, advocate with me. From that moment of having a student representative, we not only had a student rep, but we also have 2 alternates. The application process was open to every single Prince William County student, whether you were in a non-traditional school, in a special needs school, in a traditional school, you could apply, whether it was writing, a video recording. You know, we made sure that the application was accessible to all. Student representatives were given a mentor and then taught how to do social media and things of that nature. It was not counted against them in the application process. And as of last year, I have advocated and fought a battle to have it removed, that their history teacher is the connection to getting on the board. It was the history teacher who wrote the recommendation, usually mentored. And I said, you know, that doesn't fly, because most minority students don't have a connection with their history teacher because they sit in a history class that doesn't teach them anything about them. So it needs to be any teacher, PE teacher, principal, I mean, anybody that they are comfortable with, that is who helps them, guide them through the process. So I'm very proud of that. From having the student representatives on the board, we now have a student senate with a representative from every single school, again, special needs, non-traditional, traditional, and that is 4th grade all the way through 12th grade. So I'm extremely blessed to have been a part of that. And then my other one that gives me just as much emotion is updating the non-discrimination policy so that it is effective for and representative of everyone, not only our students, but our staff members. And that also was a tremendous fight. I'm sure if anybody watched the news or the papers, 2017. So that's it.
Thank you. Supervisor Palchik.
Yeah, thank you again. So good to hear all the stories, what's happening across the Commonwealth. So I, like Laurie, started on our school board, and while I was there, we did pass what's still my favorite policy, but now we keep working on implementation, is our One Fairfax joint equity policy between the school board and the Board of Supervisors. So I am one of 10 supervisors on the Fairfax County Board of Supervisors. We have 9 magisterial districts, and I represent areas of Tysons, Falls Church, Vienna, Oakton, very diverse. We've got everything, including the burgeoning Tysons, urban Tysons, and my at minimum 2 that are now middle school and a community center where I spend a lot of my time back from our, our days when Fairfax was in massive resistance, and we didn't talk about when I was growing up in school here and learning American history. And so there is that policy that we passed, right? But now it is those fights behind and in front of closed doors of how do we really put that into action, right? So little steps. You know, this year we did make sure of our CARES funding. I think we were the only jurisdiction in Virginia to receive it directly. So we created a fund for our small businesses, really targeted minority women and veteran-owned businesses, and we're able to give, I believe, more than $60 million to help our hardest hit businesses, many who didn't have access or know how to get the federal funding. So that was really exciting to be able to do that. In addition to micro lending, which is something I had done in the past in my life. And then other little victories, right? So getting a language manager. I came in, I realized in our very diverse county where the Hispanic population, Latinx, is the most hit. And we just saw in our seniors outside of long-term care, also the highest death rate. We didn't have a single Spanish speaker in our Office of Public Affairs or in our cable TV station. I was shocked. So I started doing a lot of little interviews just to get the word out there, but we did eventually bring on a wonderful manager of our language services and a Spanish spokesperson for the county. So that was a big win. And even those of us who agree on the same things, understanding what it really means, you know, in this time of crisis that no one has been through, to really get things in the communities where they need to be. So I've been chairing our Health and Human Services Committee, and I come from the world of community work, community centers, and community, you know, schools, being out there, parent liaisons, and was just a little stunned at how much pushing needed to happen to really get in to where our communities trust us and with trust coming to get a vaccine and know how to get there and be able to get there. So we were able to get a little Safeway pop-up vaccine in our historic community center that used to be a school, where even the people who work there know this community, historic African-American, Vietnamese community, people above the age of 80 who hadn't been vaccinated. So I was able to go last Saturday and just see how effective that was, how much our staff from our community center were just overwhelmed with, you know, joy to be able to really feel like they could help the community that they serve every day in a new way, and to really show that it was smooth, and I hope to see more of those. So it is exciting. I know there's a lot we do at the dais, and there's a lot that so many of us are doing behind the scenes and helping shift our districts to better meet the needs of our communities.
Thank you. And I'm going to call this a rapid fire round. If you could share in one sentence, not a run-on sentence. I am an English teacher and I have a master's in education. No run-on sentences, one sentence, a piece of advice you would give to a woman in politics, one sentence. And ladies first, and that lady would be the mayor of Manassas.
A piece of advice, don't be afraid of no, keep going and don't stop. Is that good?
That's excellent. Vice Mayor.
I'm going to use a colloquialism. Don't be scared. Show us what you're working with.
Love it. Commissioner Boyle.
It would be true to who you are and walk through the fear.
Yes. Ms. Williams.
Don't minimize your accomplishments because they may be small for you. They can be impactful for many.
All right. Y'all got me over here snapping. Okay, Supervisor Palchik.
Yeah, this is linked to what I've been hearing, but focus on your strengths. I know often we compare ourselves to others and what we don't have. Focus on your strengths and let those lead you and be a great leader.
Excellent. And because it's important to me, because I do have a SHEroes playlist that I will not play all of it for you all today, but if you could share your theme song and why this song speaks to you, what is that song that gets your energy flowing and gives you the energy to get up every day and do what you do despite what's going on in the world around you? Mayor?
Kelly Price, It's My Time.
Yes.
That's it.
Great. Okay, Vice Mayor?
Formation by Beyonce.
All right now.
That's on my list.
Yeah.
Commissioner?
Oh my goodness, I have no idea. I don't even know who this song is by, but it's a Christian song, and it's like, "You did not create me to fear." If anybody knows the rest of it, okay. So I don't know who sings it and what the title is, but that's one of my favorites.
Okay, before we all start doing our research on Google, if you can put, if someone knows the answer, women always know the answer, please put the answer in the chat. Miss Williams?
Thank you. In my uniquely individualistic self here, I created a playlist of all of DMX's prayers, which is what I listen to every time I'm getting ready to go do battle. Cause that voice and the impact, the way he sounds when he is praying, I feel like nothing can stop me at all. So that it's not a song, but had to do some cutting and dicing in there. But yes, that's
Okay.
me.
Sometimes it's like that. Like you said, you're prepared for battle. I mean, ride or die. Okay. Supervisor Palchik.
All right, so this one comes from my Spanish and French teaching in elementary school days, trying to find good songs. And I fell in love with this French singer whose mother was a Spanish teacher. Her name is Zaz, Z-A-Z, and the song's called Je veux, I want. And she just says, I want love, joy, good spirit. It's not your money that will make me happy. I want to die with a hand on my heart. And so that song just speaks to me. I love it. And if I could sing, which I can't, so I won't ever in public, that's what I would be singing at every board meeting.
Excellent, excellent. You women are so amazing. Now I'm thinking I should have said this is going to end whenever, but what I'd like for us to do before we go to our dance break, because, you know, I love to dance and everything. But if you all, those of you here, if you have not joined the Padlet, open up your resources that were emailed to you, make sure you have access, join the Padlet. And for my political rockstar panelists, if you could leave a comment under your initial post in the Padlet, how you find balance, because balance is very important during these times. It's so much going on. You have to take care of yourselves before you can do anything for anyone else. You truly cannot pour from an empty cup. So if you could do that for continued conversations in the Padlet, and also share your social media handles where you would like for our guests to follow you in that Padlet, I'd appreciate it. You could also post these things in the chat, but like I said, the chat does not show for people who join moments later. So please post that in the Padlet. If you are here and you have not made your initial post in the Padlet, please do that. We are going to have some music, a dance break. And I'd just like to thank our first panelists for being here. Thank you so much. If you can hang on and stay with us, that's great. If you got to go, I understand that. But we're going to have our break. When we come back from the music, I am also a Myers-Briggs practitioner, and I love focusing on the stress management. And we will have a giveaway for those who registered in time for that. And then we will move on to our second panel. So now it's time for our break. Please continue in the Padlet. Thank you. All right. If you are like me, I need you to stop doing the electric slide in your living room and get your glass of water and come on back. And I think I'm gonna save the I'm gonna save our giveaway for the end. I will save the giveaway for the end. There she is. Isn't she lovely? We are going to get ready and get started with our second panel, and we are joined by the lovely, I will introduce our moderator, and I'm going to let her go ahead and take it away. We are joined by the lovely Deshandra Jefferson. She's a communication strategist who specializes in media relations and crisis management. She began her career as a business reporter for CNN Money, now CNN Business, and has covered politics for Fox 40 News in Jackson, Mississippi. Please give Ms. Jefferson a round of applause.
Thank you. I gotta say, Cydny, I love that dress. Like, you never misstep.
Thank you.
You never misstep. I feel like whenever I'm around Cydny, I need to put a little extra oomph for whatever I have going on. So this is a really great panel, and I'm very excited to lead it. And I'm going to start off by introducing everyone. I'm not going to read the full bios because, you know, we have some really dynamic women. But the first person is Krista Jones. I met Krista actually when I first moved to Virginia back in 2013. Krista Jones has committed her life to public service and developing leaders, and is passionate about the power of politics to change lives. In 2006, she founded Vote, Lead, Impact to educate Black leaders about the political process. We also have Shana Burt. She's the owner of the law office of Shana Nicole Burt, PLC, which she started in 2013. Her practice is focused on representing community associations, nonprofits, and families around Virginia and Washington, D.C. We have Louise Lockett Gordon, who is a public health professional. She serves as the director of Bike Walk RVA, a program of sports bikers that advocates for bikeable, walkable streets. And I hope I get this right. I believe we haven't spoke. Shamika Melton. Did I say that right, Ms. Melton? All right. Shamika Melton is the founder of the Girls and Women's Alliance Culture Collective Camps and the creator of National Girl Power Day. So those are the panelists. Thank you, ladies. We have a very dynamic lineup. I want to jump right in and I want to talk about your passion. Like, what is your passion that moves you? Like, what is your why?
I have to say, you know, people may not believe me, but I really am passionate about empowering other people. I heard Cydny talking before, and we hear a lot of people talking about pouring from an empty cup. Unfortunately, I feel like I'm the poster child for that because my passion really is giving of others. It is so important for me to try to leave a legacy and help other people do the best that they can. That's personally what excites me.
And along those same lines, I would say that my whole purpose in my life is to help others to figure out what their purpose is. So what is your goal? How do we articulate it in a way that makes sense? And then how do we get you there? And so whether that's for my, in my professional life with my clients or my nonprofits, getting them to finesse their goals and then really go for them. That's the whole point of Shana.
I would have to piggyback off of both of what you both said. My passion is service to others. So anything within purpose, I am here for. I am trying to just do better, live better. So my passion is wellness and anything that makes us all better. So
that's a perfect lead up for me because my passion really is about health and being able to take ownership of your own health. And
it's not as easy to be able to do that depending on where you live and what opportunities you have. So I really want to work towards making sure folks have all the opportunities available to be as healthy as they can be.
And I guess kind of as a follow-up to that, how do you fight for your passion? Like, what does you do? And I'm going to start with Louise, since you just spoke. Like, how do you fight for that, for what you believe in?
Yeah, it's been kind of an interesting turn of events of getting here. I started off in direct public health service as an epidemiologist at a local health district, and sort of rerouted to advocacy for built environment, because depending on what zip code you are, you might have sidewalks, you might not have sidewalks, you might have a safe bicycle network to get around and be active in your everyday life. Rather than having to think about, do I have a gym to go to? Do I want to pay that $50 membership fee every month? So how I fight for that is working with, local governments to make sure we're thinking about how we're planning how we use our land, and our specifically for transportation, so that folks can get to A to B however they want to and don't have to rely on getting into a car, if you even have access to a car, to get somewhere. When we look at other countries that have active networks, their health statistics are just better. So why can't that be here? I'll let somebody else speak.
For me, it's really been through organizations throughout my career. So I think about when I started really my advocacy work as the president of the local NAACP Youth Council, to starting Students Against, or being involved with Students Against Racism at the University of Florida, to working in the Peace Corps. It's all been about organizations and training. Going on to starting Virginia Leadership Institute or Vote Lead Impact, I've just always felt the importance of teaching people to get what they needed. And then even now, I really enjoy working with coalitions. I really see the power of coalitions and people coming together. So my fight is really through the whole organizational structure and figuring out the best way to organize ourselves for change.
Shayna?
I think I've been trying to think of how to answer this question, because it varies really. I am energized when, again, I help others to find their energy. And so sometimes that means using the laws that allow us to do something or prevent us from doing something. Most of the time, though, I would say that it's helping either my client or my nonprofit charge to find whatever it is that they have within them, which sounds corny. I can't even believe I said it like that, but it's true. It's figuring out what is it that you have, that you do, that you offer, that we can energize and use to get you to where it is that you want it to be. So that, again, getting back to what I said before, we have your goal, but then what is it about you that makes you especially equipped to meet that goal? So I get energy from helping other people to find that.
All right, Shamika.
I would say the way that I fight is partnerships, collaborating, calling out those things that are counterproductive to our goal, anything that is opposite of what we're fighting for, finding ways to collaborate with others, and not stopping, just that simple.
I like that, not stopping. And so let's talk about, share an example of how you organize the community or stakeholders to support your cause. And we'll start with you, Shamika.
Well, for me, it's simple. I'm a lot out of the box, but I think what has worked for me in organizing the stakeholders is I invite them to my table. I invite them to what we're doing. I ask them questions. I get them involved in the what, the how, and I have an open door policy. So when we're having events or having conversations about what we're doing, I bring them up in personal so that they can see what their resources are doing, what it is going to look like when we don't get those resources, so they can kind of get a feel of and see what their contributions are doing. So I get them involved.
All right, Shayna. Since you're not on mute.
Oh, Is that the secret? Just go on mute? Okay. Duly noted. I'm thinking there were a few years ago, a bunch of us in the general nonprofit sector in Prince William County, we were confronted with the possibility of significant budget cuts to the little bit of money that we were getting from the county. And so what we did was we were able to pull together just this crazy assortment of people. People from, of course, the arts, people from health and human services, people from transportation, people from law enforcement, from education. We were able to pull together individuals and organizations from these disparate sectors and advocate as a unit. And as a result, the Board of County Supervisors opted not to do the alterations to our funding that had been threatened. So yeah, so we were really proud of the way we were able to pull together and make a real difference. Like, real people didn't lose their access to food, didn't lose their access to the arts because of what we were able to do.
I would say for me, I'm probably most proud of my work for the American Psychological Association when I was advocating against the sexualization of women and girls. APA issued a report, and I think it was 2007, about just all the ways that women are sexualized in society, whether it's through the media, through clothing, through writing, rap music, etc. And APA decided to try to get legislation introduced. I helped write legislation. I partnered with the Girl Scouts. I brought together a coalition of a lot of different organizations who were concerned about that, AUW Now. We had a Hill Day. We were able to go on Capitol Hill and talk with especially a lot of the younger female staffers. Obviously, really, the issue resonated with them, especially if they had kids. And for me, it was actually an opportunity to be more creative in my lobbying, because it was an issue that is so prevalent and it's easy to show. And so that really opened up my eyes for different ways of lobbying and advocacy. So we did get the bill introduced. We had several co-sponsors, and just really proud of the work that I was able to do with that.
All right, Louise.
Yeah, a particular sort of fight comes to mind that was kind of in recent history, but in Richmond, where Sports Backers is based, and that's generally our area focus is the greater Richmond area. We had been working to advocate for a bike network, and a segment of that network is a particularly long stretch of bike lane, 3.5 miles, which is pretty significant to the Richmond area. And 2 council members decided that they wanted to introduce an ordinance that would prohibit installing that bike lane. And this was a infrastructure piece that community had already, supported, had already attended meetings for. So it's really strange to see that happen. So what we had to do was rally support, not from only folks who live in the district that stretch of bike lane was going to be present in, but really across the city. Because when you think about infrastructure, you're not thinking about just moving people within where you reside, right? We're going to move freely across the city and connecting with other counties. So we had to work to bring together our advocates. We trained on how to tell your story really well. Why is this important to you? We work with folks to think of different stories, so everybody's not coming with the same thing. And at the end of the day, culminated in coming to a city council meeting with about 60 people speaking in favor, compared to about 15 speaking in opposition, which for Richmond, maybe that doesn't sound particularly big, but that's a pretty high number for folks coming to speak in favor of something, and made local news. So I think about that a lot, and the variety of people that came to show really citywide support for this. So I think that network is here to stay.
That's good. The next question, I want to talk to you, get your view about, today, what has been your greatest impact? But I also want to pair that with something else, because we are all going to have to deal with obstacles, So I also want you to think about like how you've dealt with obstacles or setbacks that have gotten in your way. So Shayna, you off mute. This is gonna be a theme.
I forgot.
It's gonna be a theme. That's okay though.
I'm good. Let's see. Whoa, there have been so many obstacles. I guess the one that immediately comes to mind would be a professional one, where I felt like I had certain things I wanted to accomplish. I had a perspective about how best to serve clients, how I had a perspective about how the firm where I was working should be interacting with the community, that we should be engaged, not just for the purpose of getting clients, but that we should be a part of the community. And the firm where I worked, I'll put it this way, there were 7 partners and they were all men, and they didn't understand why that was weird. And so my perspective was not only not valued, they were threatened by it, and I'm not speculating. They told me as much during my reviews. So they actually told me I was subversive because I had a perspective and was not shy about leaving it or sharing it. So ultimately, overcoming that obstacle meant taking my professional career into my own hands and saying, okay, well, I'm leaving. And I'm not leaving to go somewhere else. I'm leaving to go and do my own thing and run my shop my way with my perspective. And I hope that I encourage the people that I work with, the organizations, the individuals, to be equally foolish and brave.
That's great.
I'm muting now, though. Mute.
I was gonna say though, but sometimes you gotta step out on faith. You know, that's very powerful. All right, Shamika, I'm looking at you. I love that green.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I think much like what Shayna was just saying, that there's so many obstacles. And if you know me, summer camp is my baby. And it's hard to measure your greatest impact versus your greatest obstacles. But what I feel is the impact that is greatest for me is the vehicle of summer camp, because I'm able to see so many different people be impacted by what the village does. Although, you know, you'll always hear me say that it takes a village. I will say that until the cows come home. Although we know the village is in trouble. So rallying the village sometimes is the biggest obstacle that you have in order to get the goal accomplished. And that for me is the vehicle of summer camp, because regardless of if you're participating, if you are a sponsor, if you're a parent, if you are a community person, if you are in touch with the summer camp, then you're able to see what your impact is. You're able to be affected by that, and you are able to see the impact of the village. So it's not so much my greatest impact, it is the impact that is shared by the village that I think is the greatest thing that I'm able to witness. So that's it.
Great.
I don't want to go after Krista, so I'm going to jump in now. But in thinking about that question, what's been my greatest impact? I would hope that it is really being me in the space that I am in. And I guess I'll try to explain that better. You know, being a mixed race woman growing up, getting constantly asked like, what are you? What are you? What are you? Has made me constantly aware of how people perceive me. And so every time I step in a room, I'm looking around like, how many people look like me in this space, and why aren't there more of me in this space? And that comes up frequently professionally. So I think because of that, what I bring to the table is every time I come to a community meeting or every time I come to a public open house, where are the people that look like me? Where are the people who don't look like me? Like, do we have everybody that we intended to get to come to this? Who are we missing? And I think that persistent question asking has impacted not only my own organization, but hopefully the way that our cities and counties are approaching their outreach strategies. So I would say that because when we're making decisions that we're making in terms of how we use land and how we spend this money, we have to be thinking about everyone, and we're not always at the table and in the rooms where it gets discussed.
I think my biggest impact has been in the Peace Corps. And I'm really glad that Ebony just put this, be foolish and brave, a perfect recipe for success, in the chat. When I joined the Peace Corps, I had no idea what I was getting into. I did not think about it. I just applied and did it. And when I came back, my grandparents were like, we were so scared. We were so worried about you every day. But so you basically, I don't know if anyone's ever served in the Peace Corps or known anyone, but you go and they basically leave you in this community that's gotten prepped for you in some ways, but you're basically out there to do what you need to do. And so I had somewhat of a plan, but I had to go and I had to meet people and develop the relationships. I really feel like I was impactful because I was able to, on the project level, set up student governments, which was really exciting in a country that had been under a dictatorship for so long. And I was also able to work with a local radio station to really open up communication. So I thought that was very impactful. But to be honest, this was actually one of the most difficult times of my life, because growing up in the US in the 90s, I don't think I'd really experienced racism or really experienced what it was like to be different than people. And so when I was walking through the streets of Paraguay, that's where I served in the Peace Corps, I would get laughed at. You know, people would talk about my hair and all this. And I'm thinking, I'm here to help you guys. Why are you making fun of me? And I expected the Peace Corps to save me. I don't know what exactly I expected them to do, but I expected for them to make it all better. But I really feel like I was impactful because my presence of being different, even aside from the projects I did, just being different and also able to organize other volunteers to help them better serve their communities if they chose to stay there. I think that was the most impactful, and just being a voice inside the Peace Corps structure about the need for more African-American volunteers, and then also coming back to the US and telling that story. So that's why I say that experience on the project level and then also on the interpersonal level, I feel like I was able to be really impactful.
That's interesting, you know, because sometimes like, we're there to help again, but when you're different, you stand out, not always in a good way. And you're not always welcome. And it's like, but I'm here to help you. All right, then the next question, I wanted to talk about like, you know, our inspiration. Like, who would you say is your SHEro? And I'll start with you, Krista.
So this is gonna sound really cliche, this might be everyone's, but I really do admire Shirley Chisholm. And you know, as I've learned more about her, obviously, you know, run for president, serving in Congress, et cetera. But as I started just to learn more, because I'm the new president of the National Women's Political Caucus of Virginia, and she was one of the co-founders along with, in 71, with Gloria Steinem, Bella Abzug, all those feminist ladies. And after watching Mrs. America, which I know was not completely factual, but I really enjoyed it, on the story of the fight for the ERA, it was just really great. She battled so much from within the Black Caucus. You know, obviously she felt like some of the other feminist ladies didn't support her because she was Black. They kind of sold out, and still just came out on top and was really just able to push through and just succeed. And for me, also because she was willing, I also am interested in really building bridges. So I've worked a lot with the African-American community, but I've also worked a lot with the white community and other communities. And I feel like she was doing that too. So I just see myself in her in a lot of ways, and just really proud of the impact she was able to make on the United States.
And I gotta say, I'm a little late to the party, but I just started watching Mrs. America. It is, again, you're not right, it's not 100% factual, but it's just really interesting. You know, so let's go on. Who wants to jump in before I start calling on some folks?
I'll go because just like Krista was saying, that everyone knows that Shirley Chisholm is one of my favorite people in history. She tells Cydny all the time that she reminds me of Shirley Chisholm. And this may sound cliche, but as far as who inspires me, and this may be everyone's, but the women in my family, I would like to, my mother, my grandmothers, my aunties, and for different reasons, they have gotten me to different places, whether intentionally or non-intentionally, and also like women like us, right? So it is those people who are not very well known or not very well known yet, but it is all the work that we do based on the work that they have done. So I'm inspired by so many people I couldn't stop naming because you would probably cut me off, but I think the work that we do collectively and individually inspire me to keep going. So us and them, that is the short answer.
I like that, us and them. All right, Louise.
Sure. Yeah, it's funny. This group of women, Shirley Chisholm was definitely on my short list, along with our first state House delegate and Senator Yvonne B. Miller. Michelle Obama is one of mine, and a soror of mine who just became a judge, Vivian Henderson Esquire. And so I think the reason why all these women are on my list is I think the commonality in them is that they it seems like their core is to serve and to do it in love. When I think of them, I just think of like grace under fire, right? Like no matter what kind of challenges are thrown their way, somehow they find it in them to stand on their principles and still do that graciously and with love and compassion. And that's just very near and dear to my heart. So that's why those are kind of the women that I look up to.
All right. And I'm waiting, Shayna. I wasn't going to say your name, but you know, you.
I am muted. I was ready. So much like most of the women in the first session, I have to shout out my mom. We lost her in January of 2017, and it was devastating. But it was also a time to like pause and reflect on how important she was. For all of us. She was this woman or little girl at the time, I guess, who grew up in the projects of Norfolk, Virginia, to a mother who kind of resented her and all of her children because of the lack of opportunities that my grandmother had, and she blamed that on her family. And took that out on them and was created a really abusive household. But despite the abuse and despite that poverty, my mom was just someone who had expectations, great expectations. It's like she's Dickens before Dickens or after Dickens. Okay, great expectations. But she just had the belief that she was supposed to be more than that. That she was going to go to college and she was going to be that girl who, when everybody else had their ghetto blasters playing whatever they were playing, she was playing Tchaikovsky, because she just expected the world. And then when she met my father and then had her children, she expected that of us too. And there was never a moment when I felt like I was not entitled to greatness. And it's because she expected that. She expected it of herself and she expected it of her children. And so we're on our way to getting it there for her.
That's beautiful. Thank you. What advice would you give to other women who want to advocate for a cause or become community leaders?
Okay, I have a couple things. Number one, definitely strive for sustainability. I feel like a lot of times we're not thinking ahead enough, and we might think about a solution that's temporary. We should really get into the habit of thinking, how long can we make this last? And also start to foresee changes in the future and make it last. The other one may not be too popular with this crowd, but find a way to make money. That was my something I did wrong early on. I guess I always had this image that someone in this field, in a public service field, should not be making any kind of salary or not making a lot of money. But as I've gone through a career in politics, I've met so many people that have found a way to make it, to monetize for them. So I think, although we always say that shouldn't be your number one goal, you also don't need to be poor. You don't need to be poor doing this. So think about a way, whether it's speaking, writing, consulting, whatever, figure out a way to make money as well.
I gotta say, I finally paid off my undergraduate years, like loans decades later. I mean, it just, because like I was on the Hill, I did nonprofit work, and you know, but you got to pay the bills. You got to eat. You got to eat.
I definitely spend a lot of time with my nonprofit clients, helping them to understand that there is a life cycle to nonprofits. And that initial phase where you have the passionate leader, that's great for a little while, but ultimately that's not sustainable. And so figuring out how you translate that into that sustainability is a lot of what we have to do, because these nonprofits, the passion is the point. And they forget that it's a business, or at least they have to operate like a business. So getting them to understand that, like, so if you're someone who is passionate about a cause or a point or being a candidate, you have to not only be passionate, you have to be organized. You have to understand your relationship with your stakeholders. You have to know where the money's coming from, where it's going. So be passionate, be zealous, but be smart also, which means understanding where you are in the life cycle of whatever it is, understanding that it is a life cycle. And that I know that you think that this is the first time anyone has ever felt the level of passion you feel for this project. But however strongly you may feel about it, it can collapse, it can implode if you aren't carefully nurturing the structures, if you're not building up the supports as you're going along. So being strategic in your thinking about that, so critical.
I will say that list, we should write that list down, because when you're starting in advocacy in particular, it is a very difficult road. And what Krista and Shana both said is that money piece. I think people that are naturally service oriented, you get it mixed up, and then you cannot help the poor if you are one of them. And no one needs to be working in their purpose and struggling on or feeling guilty about actually bringing that money in. It took me years to figure that out, but it was very hard. So that, I'll say everything that Krista said, everything that Shana said, and I'll say two things. One, do not ask for permission or wait for validation to get started. It takes a lot to keep going, so make sure you keep going. But the second thing I'll say is be and do more than your mission statement. Working in service, one of the things that is most frustrating is trying to find collaborations that are ethical and line up with your integrity, and make sure that you are more than your mission statement. And the other thing is also being at the table. We were talking about Shirley Chisholm, and everyone knows that quote of make sure you're at the table, but sometimes you have to realize that being at the table means assisting those already at the table. So whether you are assisting, whether you're at your table, make sure you get at the table and get heard, get going, but be more than your mission statement.
I like that.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, because I come from like a lead organizer role initially, I'm always thinking about just the folks who want to advocate for something and don't know where to start. And so what I would say to those who are just thinking about, who are, you know, passionate about something and want to try to make an impact is 9 times out of 10, you're not the only one who's thinking about that issue. And 9 times out of 10, there's probably some organization that's set up that is working on that issue. So look for that first as maybe your avenue to get involved and get your feet wet first. And if you find that that organization just isn't moving the way that you want to move, then you can, you know, break out, take a few folks with you and figure out your own way. But, you know, you're not in this alone, you know, and I feel like that's one of the things I hear the most from folks who want to do something and don't know what to do is you don't have to go at it your own. Find the folks who are also passionate, find the other organizations that are working on it and get in there first, and then figure out your way from there.
This is closely related. You know, what do you wish you would have known when you first got started in advocacy, or what advice in your journey that you wish you knew? I'm gonna let y'all sit with that for a minute. Okay, Louise, it looks like you want to answer.
I don't. I'm really excited to hear what everybody else is going to say, but I'll jump in so that I'm not the ending thought. I think a lot of this advocacy work is relational. And so I think it's really important to build relations, and not always thinking of it in terms of a tit for tat, what can they give me, what can I give them, but because you never know when you need a person or when they need you, and you're that trusted person that they know that they'll call on, and vice versa. So I think it's important to build build relationships mindfully and thoughtfully in this work and across things, right? Like everybody doesn't care 100% all day about bike lanes and sidewalks, but but at some point you can ask them to do something for you because they know you, and they respect the work that you do and they trust you. So think across kind of issues as well as you build out relationships.
I would say the idea of dealing with failure and interpreting what failure is and defining it. It wasn't until really recently when I started to kind of dissect my upbringing and thinking more about how I was so uncomfortable with failure. And I wasn't able to verbalize it before, but I think I just started to be more introspective and look at how I was acting and how I was thinking and realizing that I was. And I know that's an issue for a lot of women. And I really want us to do a better job of raising our girls more similar to like we raise our boys in terms of being okay with being wrong or hearing the no. So I just think I could have been a lot different if I would have been a lot bolder and braver and courageous and not so afraid of failure.
That's a good one. That's a very good one too. These are all.
I don't know if I would say what I would have known as much as what I would have been, and I would have been so much less reluctant to accept the help. Me myself, it was very difficult subconsciously accepting that help inwardly. So I think for me, knowing that the village a lot of times means, or all the times means those in your circle, I tried to do it all. I tried to figure it out all. I tried to wear all the hats, and it wasn't sustainable. And also knowing that the money is a good thing because it's not for me. So the money is a good thing. So knowing that the help, the money, all those things help you build the foundation.
I wish I had known that it's okay to trust the journey. I probably would have had fewer sleepless nights if I had just trusted that the relationships that I was building, that the knowledge I was getting, the activities I was getting involved in, that they're driving towards something. Like sometimes I felt like I didn't necessarily have a plan, but you know what? This person asked me to help with this, and they seem nice, and the mission seems nice. Yeah, let me go ahead and help with that. And then 5 years down the road, that person ends up being someone who's able to open the door for something that I actually now want to try to make happen. And instead of panicking about whether or not I'm going in the right direction and handling it in the right way, if I had just trusted in the good that I wanted to do and the people that I was, that were being so kind to me, if I trusted that, again, I would have spent a lot less money on melatonin probably. So just to trust that, and then go along and enjoy that journey while you're trusting in it.
Melatonin has been my friend for many.
They make it in gummy form now. So
they have these little strawberry tablets at Walmart that are really sweet.
Oh, they do? Duly noted. Okay.
Yep. So one of the things, we're going to be coming up time, and I definitely want to open this for questions. If anyone has any questions, please put them in chat. But I want to ask, for people who want to maybe get in touch with you, talk to you, if you can put in chat the best way to stay connected. So if anyone has any questions, honestly, there's a lot of good that has come out of here. I found that a lot of these conversations to be motivational, but if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in chat. Now this may be the hardest question because, you know, I had to be honest with you. I heard Cydny asking the last one. I'm like, man, I got to think about that one. If you could list one song as your theme song, what would it be and why? I'm actually going to go on to that one because that's a hard one for me. You know, or if you have a quote, I love quotes. Like if you have a quote that captures you, what would it be?
I have a quote and a song.
Ooh.
So the quote is actually, I don't know who to attribute it to, but it's, what is my duty, whatever the day requires? Because that's just kind of how my life has gone. I may be the president of the board of the directors of blah, 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 but if I'm hosting a concert and the bathroom runs low on toilet paper, it's my job to remedy that. So what is my duty? What does the day require? And as for the song, what immediately comes to mind is the song that we played in the car when I packed it with my sisters and we drove to my job and I quit. And that is Jay-Z's, what is it, Dope Boys? Whatever that song is. If you want to feel like a superhero, have that soundtrack playing in the back of your mind when you're going in, forgive me, middle fingers up, telling everybody that you have made the decision to move on. Super empowering, trust me.
I just want to say I love that.
Come on, don't y'all talk at once.
So I'll go. So I don't know, someone said this earlier and I wrote it down somewhere, but as far as the song, I thought this was brilliant because I thought it was just a me thing that I listened to this over and over and over. But she said DMX's prayers, as you put all of them together. Oh my gosh, that just gave me life when she said that. So I'm gonna take that, but I'm also going to say Ain't No Mountain High Enough. That's the name of the song, right? So yeah. That is like my love song to myself because depending on my season, my theme songs change. And right now I'm in a season where I need to speak life to myself. So that Ain't No Mountain High Enough is the love song to myself. And one of my favorite quotes is, we said that, right? Or did I imagine that? I might have just made that up. But one of my favorite quotes is, if you want to go far, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So that's
well, Samika just took my quote, but for the song, y'all had me, now I have DMX on the brain. I was thinking Sierra, Level Up. I really like that song. It just really pushes me to go a little bit farther. But for DMX, especially when I'm feeling a little vengeful, which I try not to feel too often, but I like What's My Name by DMX. It just makes me feel better.
Love it. I got two songs and a quote. So to start my morning off right, usually Jill Scott's Blessed comes to mind because it just puts me in the right frame of mind no matter what comes up. But when I'm going into battle, one of my go-to songs is Lizzo's Excuse Me, because I feel like I need to be my own personal cheerleader no matter what anybody else is going to say about me. And then my quote actually is from my dad. He used to just tell me, what's the worst that could happen? They tell you no. So take that with me at every job interview.
I love that. Now we have a question in the chat from Vice Mayor Jennifer Bowles. I struggle with finding a true mentor to help support me. I will be honest and say that some of these women ran for council and didn't win. Another woman wrote an endorsement for a white man who was being seen as one of the good old boys. How do you find a mentor who you could trust? How do you know it was your person without an ulterior motive?
I'll say that finding a mentor is hard. And whenever I set out to find a mentor, I do not find a mentor. It's more, I have better luck when I create spaces for like-minded people to come together. So sometimes that's brunch. And sometimes it's getting together, like inviting people who I think might be like-minded to be in a space where maybe we have a happy hour. Oh, this is all during the before. So eventually we'll get back to this, but getting people together where you are in a space where you feel safe to talk about things. And then I think the mentorship relationships can evolve from that. But when I'm hunting specifically for one, that's not the moment when I have good luck. But I do believe in them. I believe that it's very, very important that you find someone who's going along a path that you think might be the one that is for you. And then, when that fails, be a mentor to someone else. Because by being a mentor, it's like when you were in elementary school and you used to have the problem child and they would make the problem child like tutor someone else. It has a way of crystallizing ideas for you that you didn't even realize you felt. And so being a help to someone else can sometimes help you to fill in the things that are missing for you.
I'm actually going to jump in on this one because, I work in public affairs and I've mentored or tried to be a mentor. And I've had a couple people in my life who I've tried to mentor and they were like, excuse me, I don't need your help. That's okay. One of them though really bothered me because she needed the help. And she felt that I had ulterior motives. And I was like, no, I don't get anything out of putting in extra effort to help you. If anything, I have other things I could be doing with my time. But there was a very much defensiveness, and she had a lot of bad experiences that led her to believe, oh, if you're trying to come out here and help me and I didn't ask you, you have an ulterior motive. And that's something I want to challenge people. Is your mentors, it may not be a formal mentorship, it may not be someone who you expect. If you really have a bad feeling about someone, let it go. But sometimes people may see something in you that you don't realize, you may not see in yourself. Maybe they want to give you guidance. Sometimes you've got to not be as skeptical, maybe listen to see what they have to say. Does it make sense? Does it resonate with you? Because I find a good mentor is someone who will also challenge and push you. Not who will just confirm, you're doing great, you're wonderful. No. How do you grow? You grow by stretching, by becoming uncomfortable. And so I just want to put that out there. Maybe some of the women or people who are coming to you, I don't know why this woman endorsed someone who was part of the Ghetto Boys Network. Do we know if they had some kind of pre-existing relationship? Did he help her with something? Talk to people, see what they have to say. Does it resonate with you? If you feel it's off, let it go. But sometimes, see what folks have got to say and then make a decision.
Hey, Deshandra, I would like to jump in really quickly as well. First, just to CYA, because I did put in the chat that Miss Bird was my mentor. And, I'm not really a problem child. I only stand good trouble, meaningful trouble, as I was told by John Lewis himself. Okay. So, and actually we kind of get in some good trouble together. Like today, I hope we're inspiring someone to put some action behind that thing that sets their souls on fire and just do it. So another thing about mentoring I like to say is when we look back to times like the civil rights movement, we had our go-to people, right? We had our leaders, we had, the children always led. It was always the youth being led by those typically, in their 30s. So it's important because when we look now, we don't have the same system, the same setup as before, because there was something with the mentorship and the generation prior to us. So I always encourage everyone to be a mentor, but make sure you're in a good headspace to be a mentor, and make sure you are authentic with yourself, because what we don't want to do is dry out a rose that's growing up that's trying to do something good. We don't want to be in a bad space before we speak and pour into others. Also, get a mentor. You should always have a mentor. Always have someone to look up to. Shayna inspires me all the time, her whole family. But make sure you are mentoring someone, and make sure you find a mentor. But before you do any of that, make sure you're good right here. So that's all I'm going to say. I'm going to go back on mute. Thank you.
I like that. We have another question from Ebony Lofton. How do you know when you should pause and not react emotionally in leadership, especially when you're so passionate? We're going to go with Shayna. She got some.
Hi, Ebony. So I happen to know Ebony, and I know that she is a fantastic leader. But I also know that she, and I think it's okay to say this, I think that she is conscious that sometimes her strength is scary to other people. And so she has to find a way to moderate that, or feels like she does. I'm not sure I agree. Again, as someone who is similarly afflicted, what I would say is I almost never send the first email. I almost never call right when the thing happens, because sometimes I need a beat before I can respond in a dispassionate, persuasive way. So for those of us who are like that, sometimes it's just helpful to literally just take a moment. You don't have to respond the second you get the inquiry, the second someone does something or they need something from you, just because they have asked in that moment. You owe it to yourself to take a pause, to make sure you're informed, to make sure that you are calm, to make sure that you are in a place where you can give a response that you will be proud of later. So sometimes for me, it's literally just taking a beat, taking a minute, taking a walk before I deal with whatever it is that is about to make me lose my mind. Hi, Ebony.
Anyone else?
I think between Cydny and Shayna, that wasn't just for Ebony, that was for me. So thank you.
I don't know. Sometimes there's something said, and I was trying to look for this quote. I can't remember, but something that one thing that separates us from other animals is that, you know, we have discipline is mastery over passion. And that's a hard one. I ain't gonna lie. For me, I feel like the older I'm getting, maybe the more mellow I'm starting to get. I don't know. I'm still, I have a meditation cushion too. You know, I sit down on a lot. But I think that Shannon made a great, you know, really taking that moment to breathe. You know, but you also have to ask yourself, when are you most effective? Like, are you most effective if you are like in the moment, or if you step back and breathe and then respond? Because there's a difference between reacting and responding. Again, I'm saying this for myself too. Cydny knows that. Anyone else? This has been a really great discussion. You know, I'm going to wrap things up. Thank you, ladies. This has been an awesome panel. I think everyone's put in the chat, like how to reach out. Again, this has been wonderful, very uplifting. So thank you, Shayna. Thank you, Louise. Thank you, Shamika. Thank you, Krista. I really appreciate, you know, Councilwoman, phenomenal woman, Cydny Neville, for putting this together. I know she has, like, please everyone give her a round of applause. I know that she has put a lot of work into this series. Originally, it was going to be last year. It was going to be live in person. But with coronavirus, here we are 1 year later. And she's like, you know, I'm going to move forward with this. I'm going to spin this up virtually. So thank you so much for putting all your time, effort, and, you know, the attendee packet, everything was like, you know, lovely. Just the way you always do things. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to our, you know, to our convener.
Thank you so much, Deshandra. Let's give her a round of applause, ladies. Thank you. Thank you. I can't wait until it's safe outside so we can, dress up in our beautiful dresses, go out there and pretty girl rock everything out. I can't wait. But, back to that headspace thing, I want to spin my little wheel because I pulled a lot of teacher tricks here to pull this together. And you have to be present to win. So I'm only going to spin my wheel once. And then I'm going to spin it later on my own. And I'm going to plug in, who is the recipient of this prize, this coveted prize that we have today. So bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and hopefully click the right one. Let's see, this looks about right. Minimize for a second here. All right, can you all see my wheel? Thumbs up, down. All right, so looking at the number of people here and those who registered in time for me to put this together, we're gonna see what happens. My Vanna hands here. Yes. All right, Melanie, Miss Melanie. Turn yourself off mute, Melanie. We want to see you. You'll come up in the speaker view when you're off mute. Thank you, lady. Melanie is absolutely amazing. I'm not going to get in the story of how I met Melanie. Hi. See, there she is. Look at that smile. Melanie, she's just an awesome woman, very inspirational. You cannot be sad. When you're around Melanie, her energy is going to pick you right up and take you where you need to be. Melanie's amazing. And I promise that was not fixed. I did my little Vanna White finger. I pressed the button. It's fun. We got Melanie. You are the recipient of a complimentary stress management Myers-Briggs session with me. So tonight, you know what I do after I do events, because I have to extrovert so much. And I really am a shy, introverted person, like seriously, nobody, but I really am. So I have to recharge my battery. So when I recharge and wake up around midnight and send you that email, you'll get a link how to take your Myers-Briggs assessment. Have you ever had a Myers-Briggs assessment? Mm-mm. Oh, this is gonna be fun. And I will set up a time to go over your stress management toolkit based on your Myers-Briggs personality type. And if anyone here is interested in learning more about that, just send me an email to, I'll just put it in the Padlet, because if I say Cydny Consults, if you don't know how to spell my name, it's never gonna come through. I will put that information in there, and I will give a discount for She Leads as that code for anyone who
I just want to say real quick,
yes, ma'am.
I gotta sign off. Cydny, this has been wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Thank you so much. But I gotta leave because I'm being taken out for my birthday. So I'm still celebrating. So this is wonderful. Kudos, ladies. This was so good, so good. But I'm gonna go hang out for my birthday.
I will be talking to you later, ma'am.
All right. Bye, ladies.
Bye, Melanie. So, she's so cute. So, yeah, I'm just so excited about the way this came together. And I enjoyed everyone here today. And I hope you all enjoyed yourselves. What moved me to get back up and get this thing going, even virtually, was just two things. My thought is, we have to leave this storm better than how we entered. So I hope everyone picked up a jewel, some piece of knowledge, maybe someone they can connect to, maybe a powerful word to hold on to that will move you and guide you and inspire you and motivate you to do what you got to do to come out of here better than you entered it. I also want to reiterate that this is not the final session. We do have a financial session on Saturday, and I know my ministries, I know my lanes. Money ain't it. I could tell you what to do, but I mean, that's why I have friends with Virginia Credit Union. So they will come, give a presentation, give us tools, particularly as women, tips we can do, things we can do in our lives right now. I don't care if you're making $15 an hour, what you can do to manage that money better. And investments. We have a specialist who will be joining us to talk about investing and what we can do right now to get ourselves together while we are in the calm of the eye of this storm, to get ourselves together and be better prepared for our tomorrows. And I'm going to close this with saying, oh, one other point I wanted to make was when Deshandra was talking, it reminded me we were talking about money. Rosa Parks, those of you who know me, I am Black girl nerd, that's me. So I've been on site in Alabama studying the civil rights movement firsthand. And I've been to the projects where Rosa Parks lived, and she died poor, you know. So when you're doing your passion work, your purpose work, you know, we kind of get into things and then it's like, who's taking care of us? You may have 1,000 followers, which, I mean, that's a goal for me because, you know, people silently follow my stuff. I know y'all be looking, but don't like, but that's okay. But when you have all these followers and you have all this influence, right, turning that into dollars is another ballgame. Somehow you have to find your peace, be still, and figure out how you can navigate turning that influence into dollars. You know, it's not all about money all the time, but if you are trying to make money as a speaker, you know, or whatever it is that speaks to you, it doesn't matter how many followers you may have if they can't even pay $10 or they won't pay or they don't see the value in paying you for your work and your worth. So that's just something to ponder, as I don't have the answers now. But another thing that moves me is the energy and spirit of my mother. And I'm going to close this with this quote. She also told me to wear a bad dress, so that's why, you know, I accessorize. My mom said, you own the room. You come in there and walk in there and you own the room. But she also says, dazzle them with your brilliance. And whatever you do, you dazzle yourself. But you make sure when you got the mic, you dazzle them with your brilliance. With that, thank you, ladies. She leads.
Thank